It has finally happened as Boston Bruins key free agent addition Nikita Zadorov is finally starting to heat up. And with what we've seen in last night's game, Bruins fans should be very, very excited. We're going to be talking about what we saw in that game and what's changed since Joe Sacco was taken over as head coach. We're going to be talking about all of that here in this video. Before we do, we're on the road to 6K, and we noticed that only 30% of you guys watching right now are subscribed to the channel. So if you're looking for a spot to get all of your Boston Bruins news, you are in the right spot. Hit the sub button, join me here on the channel. We are covering everything Boston Bruins, but like I said, we need to get into this. We need to touch on what Zadorov's turned into, and the hidden gem that we all thought we were going to get, Nikita Zadorov, really didn't start out at the beginning of the season. And that's one thing that Bruins fans have really been kind of talking about all season, with the many storylines going from Jim Montgomery, from Don Sweeney, from everything like that, to now where we are with some success with Joe Sacco and Nikita Zadorov. I want to pull up the stat cards from last night's game. Looking at Nikita Zadorov on top, an absolutely insane first goal for the Bruins in this game, and first non-empty net goal for him on the season. That was just one piece of his game. We saw so many great defensive plays, great on the offense. We kind of seen what Nikita Zadorov was supposed to be since day one as the Boston Bruins, or as a Boston Bruin, sorry. But even on top of that, the physicality that he's been bringing lately, and the physicality and the defense that he's been bringing lately that go hand in hand, has really been a key part of him kind of turning his season around so far. And yet, we are still very early in the season. I don't want to kind of count him out at that point, or at the point we're in right now. But the fact that we're starting to see him heat up, playing better, playing a lot more smart, still taking some penalties, but a lot of that is just coming with his style of hockey. And now, I know that's not really ideal, especially for the way the Bruins are, but the fact that we're seeing this little mixture of offense that Zadorov has mixed in with his defense and physicality has been a really big piece for the Bruins, especially in the absence of Elias Lindholm, which I mentioned in the last video. That is going to be extended likely into the new year, at least for many more weeks. That is what Joe Sacco said on that. So we're going to need our key addition in Nikita Zadorov to really step up alongside many of the other players that we've had so far this past few weeks since the absence of Elias Lindholm. And going another little step into this, I wanted to pull up the recent games from Nikita Zadorov as well, recent seasons from Nikita Zadorov. As you can see, the penalty miss have been an issue. 52 so far this season, only 26 games in. Really on pace for what he had last year in 54 games to the Canucks, 102. We know Zadorov's not really the most disciplined player, but as well, kind of counting in what he did last night, the slash, then the cross check. He's lucky he didn't get two on that, but ultimately, it's fine. He has a few very funny things to say, which I will pull up in a moment here about what he had to say with that, but it really goes to show he cares, and I think that's a big part of what the Bruins are also considering in him, and we wanted to get the physicality from Nikita Zadorov. That is no question. We've been waiting to see Zadorov's physicality really be in a Boston Bruins uniform. We wanted to see what he brought to this team, and it's really been all what we expected. Just a few too many penalties, and the fact that that was what we're seeing, and as well as, I will pull that up once again, the 1 goal, 6 assists, 7 points and a +3, that really isn't as bad as what a lot of people are kind of putting him out to be right now, and he's still not great. I won't say that on total of the season, but as of late, he's been a very, very solid and one of the better defenders on this Boston Bruins team. So we're starting to heat him up. We're starting to see what really is going to come out of him, where he's really kind of finding in and fitting into this Boston Bruins lineup, which is something that I didn't expect to happen right away anyways, but the fact that we're seeing it now, a bit later than what we wanted to, but at least we're seeing it, is something that we've all been waiting to see, and I think that there's really no question that finally we get to see it, and that's something we all wanted to look at. And I want to pull up this from Michael Sullivan as well. He says, can we put Zadorov on the power play? A little extra juice, heavy shot from the point. I say screw it and let's get crazy. This is one thing as well that we've kind of been contemplating, the change of the power play. What needs to happen? And we've also kind of been discussing here in the live streams as well. Make sure to check those out if you haven't. Live after quite a few games, but not every single one of them. So you're going to have checked in. Hit the sub button so you do find out when we go live. But a lot of us are talking about in the live streams about putting Zadorov in front of the net on the power play. We've seen the Boston Bruins do that with Chara in the past in the playoffs, but what is it like to put a big body in front of the net? There's a few options that could come out of this, and they could actually find a bit of success. However, the fact that Zadorov is not the most disciplined player, as I mentioned, really makes me think that he would take quite a few penalties in front of the net on the power play. But the fact that he does have that shot, we saw that shot in action last night, there's really no doubt in my mind that he could be a great winger, or a great point guy, or maybe even, someone kind of at the top of the circle, down in the middle of the circle for the Boston Bruins. His defense's physicality will be there. His enthusiasm, I guess we could say, how much of a drive he has is also very much there in the power play. So I think this could be a very interesting thing to kind of tackle, a very interesting thing to take a look at, and maybe Joe Sacco goes to experiment with something along the lines of that as the season kind of goes on. And as we see with the defense, there's a pretty, big hole on the first line in Jordan Oesterle, who's still been playing pretty well in the absence of Elias Lindholm, but Nikita Zadorov has kind of found that home on the second line, which I will get into here in a moment as well, going into what we've seen with that and kind of the sneaky part of what we're looking at. And that goes right here. Connor Ryan says, Nikita Zadorov is on his way to the best all-around... this is what Nikita Zadorov had to say on if it was his best all-around game as a Bruin. He said no. A very interesting quote because a lot of people thought that was his best game as a Bruin. Now, all-around, I would say yes, absolutely. The physicality, the goal, the defense, everything in this game really showed me that Nikita Zadorov was ready to go, and really ready to go for every aspect of his game tonight. And he's really showed off every talent that he has for this team. So a very interesting thing for him to say that he was not his best game as a Boston Bruin, but I do have a few quotes here that kind of will make up for that as him. But this is what Joe Sacco had to say about Nikita Zadorov tonight. He said he was engaged in the game tonight. He was physical. He was just defending hard tonight. He was on the ice. The opposition knew that he was playing, and that's really what Nikita Zadorov has to do. We know how big he is. We know how kind of dangerous he can be if the opposing team has the puck, and we know how much he likes to use his physicality. And those are all things that defenders will take a knowledge of, and they will kind of notice if Zadorov is in the ice and really not trying to make some moves that they might if he wasn't. And I think it's a big factor of what they brought Zadorov in for, is his size and his presence. Not even just his ability to defend, his physical ability, but the presence he has on the ice is something that we don't really see in the NHL too often. So the fact that he's in the Boston Bruins uniform doing that is something that they've all wanted to see, and what Bruins fans have been really wanting to see since the absence of Zdeno Chara on this team. And as I mentioned, tonight was in full force for that whole aspect of his game. And going on to another quote here from Nikita Zadorov, he says, I think we're playing with the passion, playing with the pride, and I think we're playing for each other. I thought we were disconnected before. And that's what he had to say on about what Joe Sacco has changed about this lineup. And this is what a pretty unanimous quote from the entire Bruins team. Everybody that has been kind of asked this question about Joe Sacco's new coaching style, his new presence to this Boston Bruins team, it really just goes to show that the team feels more connected. It seems like Joe Sacco's gone to the locker room a bit more than what we had seen Jim Montgomery do, which was pretty prominent in the results the Boston Bruins have had as well. But the fact that the team is not being afraid to say this is a big, kind of outbreak for this team, especially with the absence of Jim Montgomery now. And it really does seem, as Zadorov said, that the team does have that chemistry. The team feels more connected, and on the ice, that's a big thing as well, but we don't even get to see it in the locker room, and I'm sure that's another big part of how this team has really turned it around and the result that this team has had. And the final quote here from Nikita Zadorov as well, we have one more, and he says, I don't like when guys shaking his hand. I barely touch his hand, so I think that's got to get out of the league. It's a man's league. We all get slashed. We're all in pain, but you don't go like that and show the referee that you get slashed. So I think it's just a little disrespectful. And that's what he had to say about the penalty he took, which ultimately could have led to 2 penalties for him over a 4-minute for a cross-check as well. I believe it was on Lucas Raymond. I cannot recall, but, Zadorov, that's just another Nikita Zadorov quote. As I mentioned, really goes to show what his opinion and kind of status is in the league. He really don't care if he gets hit. He don't care if he gets hurt. He's out there to take hits, to make hits, to, I don't want to say hurt people, but his presence on the ice is something that he takes with a high status. So once again, another very Nikita Zadorov quote, big bad Bruin kind of quote that we have there, which is something I really like to see kind of come out of Nikita Zadorov. He's not really the loudest guy, it don't seem like, at least from quotes and stuff, but the fact that he's putting this stuff out there, we absolutely love to see that here in those kinds of quotes. But as I mentioned, I want to pull this up as well. And Nikita Zadorov has really seemed to find a home on that second line with Brandon Carlo. And that line has been playing very, very well. And I did want to pull up the stat card once again to kind of go back to what this line looked like. And obviously Zadorov had the goal there, so that was immediately going to boost his individual offense up on this chart. But as you see, Brandon Carlo there as well. And the offense and the defense that they've both held on this team for the past few weeks, as we've had Joe Sacco as head coach, has really made this line become something that we need to look more into him. Not in a bad way, but in a good way. We want to see how this line could really impact any other situation on the ice, whether that is, as I mentioned, the power play, whether that is, somewhere in the middle of the ice that he could really just put a great line in. And obviously, Charlie McAvoy is going to be that number one defenseman on the right side, but who says for a game that we don't move Zadorov and Carlo up to that first line? And obviously, if Zadorov is taking the penalties, you wouldn't do that, but when he's playing good, when he's playing very, very solid, and especially with the Joe Sacco coaching style and really what we've seen change, it could be a very interesting thing to see with Brandon Carlo and Nikita Zadorov here manage to, take over that first line for the time being. And I just wanted to pull up Charlie McAvoy's stat card here. And it's been a pretty, repeated thing of him being on the bottom. But a lot of that we have to kind of take into consideration too, is that how long he's being on the ice, how long or how many minutes he's logging every game and every night is going to take a big hit to your, your stat card if you're doing more mistakes, but you're still just on the ice more. And a lot of that does come into that consideration as well. But we've also seen Charlie McAvoy not have some great games this season, which is another thing that I think we got to realize, we got to put into, our consideration about that first line. And obviously, he's very good. There's no doubting that. But we want to see less mistakes from this Bruins team. Less mistakes. It's going to come out to more goals. We've seen the offense in overtime tonight. Got lucky with the penalty at the end of the game, and we got lucky with a few calls in the game, but ultimately, this was a Bruins win. Zadorov played his game tonight, and that's what we need to see more from him. And it really is exciting to see Zadorov kind of come out of his shell finally, start to play very, very good. And what we've seen in this game is something that I want to see for the upcoming future with the Boston Bruins and Nikita Zadorov. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy it, give it a like, hit the sub button. Let me know what you think down below about Nikita Zadorov, his play with the Boston Bruins this season, especially as of late under Joe Sacco. It's really something exciting to see and something that we haven't seen in quite some time for the Boston Bruins and Nikita Zadorov. But like I said, that's all I got. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy, like I said, give it a like, hit the sub button. But thank you for watching. Have a good day and good night.